What is your confidence level in Colton McKivitz, and where does that kind of stem from?
You know, Colt is he's done a great job for us through the year. You know, through the years he's been here, he's always had to fill in short spells, and has done a good job for us. I think that knowing the job's his coming into it, and it's his job to lose, kind of. Although there'll be guys that are there to compete if it doesn't work out. I think is also going to help build his confidence. I think he's good for the position. He's good. He probably, Mike McGlinchey is one of the best run blocking tackles in the NFL. Whether I say it, PFF says it, whoever says it. Colton probably won't be quite that, but he is a very good run blocker, and his protection, I think, is really solid and consistent. He's got a consistent personality. He's a really tough, hardworking guy. He's a great character guy. Kind of like last year, we talked about the interior three players. He's made the right stuff. He's actually played more snaps than those interior three guys last year played. And so it's just about a matter of getting out and starting week in and week out and not feeling like, you're a short-term guy that's got to get it done for 1 week. This now is your job to kind of work with and play through. So I'm excited for his opportunity. And there's no saying, once you get out there and things start going, you hope he hangs in there. I mean, I already told him, I said, I think we're going to camp against the Raiders. They drafted a really high rusher, and they have a rusher that is pretty darn good too, 98. So, I mean, it's going to be a challenge right out of the gate just in training camp, in the first preseason game for him. So he'll have a lot to go through this season, but we have a lot of confidence in the guy.
We didn't get to see a whole lot of him last year, but he didn't let up over his small sample a lot in pass protection. Did he take big strides from the year before?
He was playing as well as he'd ever played, and he was in the Rams game, the home Rams game, and his knee, here's a shocker, he was blocking his guy, and Aaron Donald kind of got loose on the left side and got shoved into him, and his knee just kind of was a weird thing, and so he had a minor knee thing that took him out for a few weeks. And when he came back, it wasn't like he wasn't the same guy, but he just never quite got back to that level, and he never really had to play the rest of the year, short of a mop-up thing at the end of the game.
How much do you think he grew from that trial by fire in Week 17 in 2021?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, Colton's been through a lot here, and the thing about him was we released him. I think it was his second season after the second training camp, and that was a wake-up. If you talk to him about it, that would probably be his wake-up call in the NFL. And we brought him back on. Nobody claimed him, and we brought him back on our practice squad. And to him, that was one of those things where he kind of thought, well, I was drafted. I'm going to be here. I'm going to get my opportunities. And you come to realize that nothing's guaranteed. And so we brought him back in the practice squad, and he was a different guy from that moment on. His jaw was set, and we activated him later in the year. And that kid, he has been all business, all work, all about being the best he can be. And last season during camp, you nailed it. He was playing as well as he's ever played. Coming out of that Week 17 game, or whatever it was, a couple years ago against the Rams, and then obviously into the season when he had to fill in.
What do you look for out of Spencer Burford in year 2? What does he need to?
Well, I tell you what, it's going to be exciting for him. Both those guys were in my office yesterday because I want to give them both kind of the same message of, you're not looking over your shoulder right now. This is your job. Now there's guys here. We brought in John Feliciano. We brought in Matt Pryor. We've got Jalen Moore. We've got Leroy Watson. I'm sorry. Sorry, Leroy. And we've got these guys that are there to compete for this position. But the same thing with Spencer. I said, Spence, last year you split time with Dan, and it was good for you. And I would have hoped during the year he would have taken over the position, but he never really did. It was always kind of a nip and tuck between the two of them, and Dan had to fill in some games to other positions, so Spence ended up playing more plays. This year, boy, he has come back, looks like a different guy, carried himself differently. The confidence level, I mean, the jump, it's true. Between years 1 and 2 for a player, if they play, is the biggest jump they ever make, because you just can't stop what goes on during the season. It's just one game after another game after another game, and about October, your season is usually over in college, and now we're playing into February almost, like last week of January. So it's like, it was so long and so much, and it doesn't let up. This year, I think he's more prepared for the whole process. He knows what it is. I think he's ready to make that step, and I'd say everything to this point, as much as you can tell from this, he looks prepared and ready to go.
Feliciano came here with kind of a reputation of being a good, glue guy, locker room guy. Are you seeing some of that in terms of his interaction with the line?
Oh, he's a great guy, and that's the one thing about we were just talking about on the way over, that the character of the guys on this team that Kyle and John have brought in is just outstanding. I mean, he's got a great group of guys. It's a great room, and everybody works works together. So when we go out looking in free agency, we don't want to bring in a guy that's going to not be that. But John has been as advertised that way. He competes. He won't miss a beat if he ends up starting at guard or center for us for whatever reasons. I think John's a good player and adds a lot to the room leadership-wise. Toughness, tenacity, work ethic, yes sir, no sir guy, and really, really good guy. Really enjoyed getting to know him.
Saw Zakel getting some snaps at center today. Is that?
Some. They were on the ground sometimes.
I wasn't going to mention that, but
Yeah, we're trying to work him in there. Nick's an interior player. I think there's been some talk about Nick at tackle because that's what he played in college. He's an interior player. He's made great strides. He was if there's a McGlinchey award, Mike McGlinchey, I mean, should have had a cot somewhere. He was here all the time. 24/7 McGlinchey was Mr. 49er, right? Zakel is running a close second to that right now because he was here the first day he could be here in the offseason, training, working on his quickness, working on everything we asked him to work on. He's made a huge jump, but he's got to get snapped. He's got to get snaps up, and he's had some trouble in these OTAs. Gun snaps are fine. He's just got to get more snaps with our quarterbacks, and right now because it's a different quarterback, it's not like he's taking in the scout team last year. You took all your snaps, say with 17, and then now this year it becomes a point where it's a bunch of different quarterbacks. He's not used to that yet, so he's not a natural center. But we've got to get him ready to go with that position.
Have you talked about Fisher yet? I walked in late, but what are your thoughts on Fisher?
Joey.
Is he a tackle?
Joey's a guard. He's definitely a guard. Joey's going to be a right or left guard. I don't see him playing center ever right now. It doesn't mean in time he might not be able to grow into the position. He's not a tackle though. He is strong, hardworking, tough guy. I really like what I see in him. It's a big learning curve right now, as is for all rookies. He's even a smaller school guy. The techniques that they used were different. So it's a big learning curve, but you never know. You come in and you start doing it, next thing you know, it clicks for some guys sooner than others, or he may be a year from now. I don't know, but I really like him as an undrafted because he's physically got the makeup to be a good offensive guard.
You mentioned earlier the value in kind of knowing that it's your job going into year. Brendel had that last year and had a pretty good year. Having had that year under your belt, how much better can Brendel get? Like, is there still upside there?
Well, yeah, I think it's for the same reasons we were talking about today. We missed some calls early in the season. He got better as the season went on. He was really quick to want to make a call, and as you guys know, we motion a lot. So sometimes he'd make a call, but the picture would change, and we'd be off because of that. And as late as the Seattle game in the playoffs, it happened. And it happens to everybody. It happened to Alex in the championship game 2 years ago. And I just think that what happens is that those things, the game slows down another step because you played a whole season now. You've seen all the different defenses. You've been on the road. You've heard the crowd noise, the silent count. You managed all that stuff one time. Now you can build on those same things, and there should be growth. Is he physically going to be a lot better player? I think you learn. You start learning angles. You start learning the defensive guys in front of you. You start learning our offense a little bit better. You're not just now, oh my gosh, I'm running this line. I've got this whole offense to learn. I've got to get everybody pointing in the right direction. Oh, and by the way, I've got to do my job. Now you feel a lot more confident to run the line. You feel a lot more confidence of what we're doing. And at the same sense, now you can focus on now, how do I play better? So I think there should be a jump this year for him. There should be a jump for Burford. There should be a jump for Banks. That conversation I had with Spence and Colt I had last year with Banks. And it was never more true with Banks. I said, dude, I said to him, you may, I had it with Jake too, but I said, you may come into this thing and we may go to Minnesota for camp and you may play, like a Hall of Famer, or you may play like you should be our starting guard. And through much of the preseason, there was a lot of question as to how he would do it. He struggled, but we had the conversation before. I said, it doesn't matter. You're the guy until the wheels absolutely come off. And so we want you to know that. And so I don't know whether that helped him or not. I just know I want him to understand. It doesn't mean that if he goes into camp and some guy just outplays him, yeah, we're gonna start the other guy. But that discussion is because you guys have heard me enough to know that it's a long haul for these guys. We talked about it last season, and yeah, they played good for 3 or 4 weeks, but it's a long season, and there's a lot that can happen. There's a lot of development, and it's not so much. It's what do they do with when they fail, and that's what you don't know until they really fail. It's one thing to fail out here. It's another thing to fail when you're posted on Twitter, failing when they do the spotlight on NFL Network and all the people point you out as being the reason why in the fourth quarter you gave them the sack fumble, blah blah blah. Then you got to come in the next day and pretend like it didn't happen and go to work. That's when you really find out about the character of the guy. That's why what John and Kyle have done, going back to discussing the John Felicianos and the people that you bring in these high character guys, and these guys they dig in and they usually can find their way through that. So I don't remember who we're talking about now.
I forgot to. It's
Chris,
okay.
you mentioned your players, especially the younger guys, taking snaps from a number of different quarterbacks. How does the current quarterback situation affect what you're doing this time of year?
I don't think it really does, because the offense is the offense, and we're not tailoring anything for a quarterback run game right now. So everything is set up as if it could be Brock, it could be any of these four guys, the three that are there now, and then Brock could be in there. So it really isn't for us anything different, and it's good for guys to take snaps from different people. There's just a limited number of snaps, so there's not a lot of ops, but we got to get that ironed out. But it doesn't really change much. I don't think for anybody, other than the fact that a couple of guys are new and we're in the system. But other than that, for us, it's all good.
Last year mid-season, there was kind of discussion that with the whole new coaching staff, a lot of new coaches on the offensive side, that the system to get information to Kyle changed and kind of you got in your flow maybe mid-season. You have more consistency this year. Is that do you already feel that helping your momentum going forward?
Yeah, I think that Clint Kubiak's come in and taken Bobby Slowick's role, so he's had the most learning to do. But last year, you're right. We had, even me, I've been the line coach here before, but I had to move into that run game coordinator, whatever that is. But I had more to do. I had a little bit more to do than I had to do the year before. And then everybody else was brand new in their position. So you're right. It did take a while for Kyle to adjust, because he's had Mike McDaniel forever, and all these guys have been on the staff, and all of a sudden, boom, and they're all gone. And it did take some time. And that's not an excuse for how we played in the first part of the season. We could have won all those games, but it would have gone the same way. There was still an adjustment as far as the workflow, who does what for Kyle, who prepares these tapes, because for years they've been done by certain people, and all of a sudden it changed, and who was going to fill that role. You had Greasy for the first time as a quarterback coach. So this year, I think we kind of know where we're going. And I think with Clint filling in for Bobby, kind of just doing the same thing, I think we've got a real good flow right now. I think when we get to the season, we shouldn't be too far off of where we would from say, like you said, the midpoint of the season, whenever we kind of start to get our stride as far as how everybody's role was going to fill out. I mean, shoot, Brian Fleury and I mean, Brian was a part of the run game early, but then we came to realize just the marriage that he and I could work together, because he sits in more with Kyle for the pass game formations, things like that. So he and I, we created together much more. He was much more integral part of formationing and motioning and adjusting those types of things. I'm like, I'm still a line coach at heart in a lot of ways. I mean, yes, schematically how we're going to do things, but I'm looking at what's best for the line, the runner, the angles, and things like that, and then they're going to dress it up. And Brian, as the year went on, took on more of that. Well, I think everybody did. Shoot, Clay Kubiak created this tape for Kyle on Fridays that was outstanding, and it was probably as good as it's ever been, understanding what we need to get done. So it's been really cool to watch the guys, how everybody's worked together and grown in their roles.
You mentioned
Last one.
at some point last year, I think you were half jokingly, but you said like Greasy might sometimes near the end of the day be like, what are we still doing here?
I was joking.
Okay, gotcha. But, I mean, obviously he's back, there was some talk that, you had to consider, did you want to continue to be a coach? Anyway, I guess, what did he bring last year, and I assume it was a nice.
Well, it's such a great, it's like I said, and again, this is, it's 2023, it's a whole new thing, but I can speak to last year, and it's such a nice, everybody's role, Brian's role as the former player, adds a perspective. He's got a great knowledge of the offense. He's a good football coach. He understands the quarterback position, but he has that great perspective of having played the position. And you have Clay Kubiak was in the room with him. Bobby Slowick was in the room with the quarterbacks. Kyle obviously is the loudest voice probably in the room with the quarterbacks to help, direct the direction the way things are going. And the other guys are to take care of them there. But it's like everybody had, and right now it was a cool puzzle. It kind of all fit. Brian had his role, Bobby, now Clay, Clint, now Bobby, instead of Bobby, and then Clay was in there as well. And I think everybody just kind of fills those roles and is able to really get, help each other out, complement each other. And that's why I think that Brian, I think obviously this year has a lot more confidence. He knows the offense 1 year more. He's got a lot more confidence in what Kyle wants. And so it's always a work in progress as far as how this thing plays out. It's always a management job. And that's where, everybody has to work together, because Kyle being the head coach, he can't necessarily be up and down the hallway making sure everybody, everything's all fitting together. We got to all work together on this thing. This year it is a little different, but it is nice to kind of everybody kind of set their roles. I think Brian's ready to take that next step as well and be not like he wasn't confident, but I think he's very, he feels like his feet are on the ground this year. It's not all uniform.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.